If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, right? Because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play. Because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hey, I'm Colby Jubenville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast right here in VC Productions in studio in Nashville, Tennessee. I feel like I was just here with you guys.
Welcome back.
We got part two of a great show. We're going to serve it up in a way that you can get it. We've got Sean Henry. He's the CEO and president of your Nashville Predators. And just like Dev Digital, did I say that right?
You
Dev
did.
Digital.
You nailed it.
Winning championships in the digital realm. Your Nashville Predators, that's John's favorite team. He's got a shirt. What does your shirt say today?
You know, it is the iconic lamp from A Christmas Story made in the Predators skate boot.
Well, I know that.
And it's my favorite Preds shirt of all time.
The creativeness then was just so
so
powerful.
good. Used to be.
I know that makes Sean happy to see that merchandise out and about. We are the GOAT Consulting Podcast. In our 20s, we get in the game. In our 30s, we move up in the game. In our 40s, we try to stay in the game because those 30-year-olds are so damn good.
They are.
In our 50s, we say, what is it that I really want? We hope you'll do that today. And we're about the GOAT, or the greatest of all time. In sports, it's easy to see. It's people that are recognized for their greatness. In business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, unique education, and unique experience. And Sean, you certainly do that in the role that you sit in, and what you do gives energy and certainly creates energy for many, many people. And we appreciate you spending another segment with us and taking the time to be here today with us and our global audience.
Yeah, and besides Nolan Ryan, I think Sean is the king of the curveball. He even told us last episode he didn't like the term GOAT, so surprised us with that on our own.
But then turns
show.
around and gives probably the most insightful definition of what one is.
You'll have to go back and listen to that.
I used to love Nolan Ryan too, but if my sons heard you compare me to Nolan Ryan, they would just be laughing and laughing and laughing for a lot of personal inside story there.
Well, maybe we'll bring one of those up here in a moment. Sean, this says that you're the alternate governor of the Predators. What does that mean?
Of the NHL
So
Predators.
every team, we own the league, right? We own 1/32
That's
of it.
right.
And each team has one official vote for most matters. So you normally most teams have, 3 or 4, maybe some have 5 or 6 governors. But you have one governor and then alternate governors for the rest. So Herb Fritch, our chairman, is our governor. David Poyle and I are our alternate governors right now.
Gotcha. Got it. So it's kind of like the backup goalie.
Yeah, we're both e-bugs behind her. So you have one official vote, and that's all you got.
So I've got a question. Maybe we can launch into this main topic here. You talked about a lot of really cool moments as you got up to where you are today in your career. Much of it had to do with sports, although it started as a busboy. That's a great story for folks to go back and listen to. But I wanted to ask, what is one of the most meaningful wins that you've been a part of? A lot of franchises, a lot of games. What's one of the most meaningful wins?
Well, the most memorable for me prior to being here was when we won Game 7 Stanley Cup in Tampa against Calgary. There's something about. So I feel badly, for any team that I don't feel badly for anyone who wins a championship. Let me put it that way. But I feel badly for those that win it and don't win it at home. As special it is to win, winning at home is just a little different. So
Sure.
When we won Game 7, it was just an incredibly tight game, and it was just fun. To me that was number one until when we beat Chicago in Chicago, Game 2 of the 2017 Stanley Cup. If you remember. A lot of people said we backed into the playoffs, a term I personally hate. You earn your way into the playoffs, by the way. But we're the 16th seed.
That's right.
We were playing, I think, the number 1 team in the West, not number 1 overall. But no one believed that we could win. When I say no one, I mean no one outside of people that had a business card with our logo on it. Our fans were, mad at us that we backed in. We barely made the playoffs. Now we're going to get swept by Chicago. They're going to take over our building. They're bully us, blah, 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 blah.
The opposite happened.
Yeah, and the fact that we didn't hear their goal song once, because of Pekka.
That's the
you know,
worst
Pekka's
goal
out.
song of in the entire sports.
Well, yeah, especially when you're hearing it in their building
Right.
against your team, right? But when we won that game, it just like, my gosh, this is a special year. No matter what happens now, it's a special year because we always talk about golden moments. All of our fans enjoyed a golden moment at home watching that game. And then it gave us an opportunity to, have game 3 here with virtually 0 Blackhawk fans in the building. And it was just an amazing, period of time for this team that we got to ride off of. So I think that's.
It was 2017, right?
Yep.
So my most memorable moment, maybe of almost of all time in sports, because I got to be in Indianapolis this year when Georgia won the national championship, and they're my team. But maybe
Aren't they a rival to Alabama now?
I've heard that. Maybe my second favorite moment of all time was being at the game. The however many overtimes we were in, Mike Fisher scores the win at like 1 a.m. I was there. What's that?
1:03 a.m.
That's right. And my wife, we had a girl in our neighborhood that was watching our kids, and my wife ended up leaving because she was like 15 years old. She's like, I got to go home to relieve the babysitter. And I'm like, yeah, you do, because I can't leave. And I ended up staying to see that win, and it was just one of the coolest moments. And what was so cool about it, Sean, I know you remember this, is I remember looking around, and I think my wife was the only one that had left that game.
It was amazing.
It was so incredible. That's one of my favorites.
Awesome.
And Tom Seagren, our chairman at the time, his mother was celebrating her 103rd birthday that night at the game. And the best part was looking up to the suite, and she was standing on her feet applauding at 1:03 a.m. It was just
gosh,
a
that's
special
so
night.
cool.
So remind your wife of that a 103-year-old woman stayed and she did not.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite moment is going to go back, and Marty had to remind me of this. Marty Mulford, who served under you as the senior director of ticket sales, he reminded me of how you took the Go Purds moment and turned it into an opportunity versus a challenge. And I would love for our audience to listen to how the Go Purds went from being possibly one of the biggest debacles in sport for that year, or seemed to being you recognized by Keith Olbermann as one of the coolest moments in sport for that year.
Well, it goes back to a pretty simple thing. You're going to make mistakes, and then you have 2 choices when you do. Say, oh, we made a mistake, or no, we didn't. And the funny thing is about when you say no, you didn't on something so clear that you misspelled your team's name. Like, we made a mistake. And I remember being in a meeting, just honest with my head in my hands. Like, you can misuse the wrong 2. You can say a lot's one word. You can end a sentence on preposition, right? There are things that you do all the time.
Yeah.
That's fine. Then you can argue about it. Well, common language now allows for us to use a lot as one word and not 2.
Right.
Fine. Irregardless is now a word, which kills me on a personal level.
Yeah.
Fine. You misspell the team name. There's no arguing whether or not it's a mistake. However, people that are not with the team anymore were in a room saying, we need to suppress it. We need to shut it down. We need to blame IBM for printing it that way. We need to blame the printer. I'm like, what? Well, I'm looking around the room like, guys, we screwed up. We screwed up because we didn't proofread carefully enough. We screwed up because, let's face it, reading our team name is like looking at wallpaper in your bathroom. You don't even look at it anymore, right? It's spelled correctly. And I said, so why don't we just go out and say we made a mistake? Let's blame Nash, first of all, right? We have the 7-foot cartoon character.
Yeah.
And let's get a video of him at a keyboard with a big old mitts doing this. And let's send it out in a letter with everything misspelled and laugh at it. And I'll never forget one gentleman who's not here anymore, and glad for it, who was like, that's ridiculous. You can't make fun of yourself. I said, well, we can if we want to join everyone else. Because everyone else right now is making fun of the incompetent Purds. We can't even spell our name. How are we ever going to win a Stanley Cup? And it turned into one of those really fun things. The backstory, though, is about 4 months later, we did it again. Oh, no. And then it was like, and I'll never forget, the gentleman that coordinates all of our mascot activities said, come on, don't blame Nash again. What's wrong?
We took the fall the first time.
Yeah, I think that time we just came out and said, we're just not very smart. Or, we had a little bit more fun with it. But laughing at yourself is important when other people are. I think.
Well, that vulnerability fuels connection, right? And so I think one of the things that the takeaway for the audience for us is that leaders and managers get paid to do two things: solve problems and make decisions. And they get judged on results, and those results define whether they move up or down in their career. And I think your example is a great example of how you make the decision. And then he said the hardest part about that thing for you was writing an email that had 25 misspelled words in it that you could barely sit it out because you couldn't make sense of the whole thing, but you found a way to get through it.
Well, but I think the story that I tell myself sometimes is, and hopefully so much less today than I ever have before, but there were certain times as my younger years, the story I would tell is if I show that vulnerability or that weakness or that I screwed it up somehow, that I would somehow, alienate people, when the truth is quite the opposite, right? Like you just said, Sean, I mean, you kind of made it into this thing that gained loyalty and laughter and an army of people that stood behind it, right? Like, I mean, that's what's so fascinating. But the story, at least I think sometimes I tell, maybe we tell in our heads, is something totally different than what's actually true or could happen.
Yeah, we all make mistakes. Owning them, I think, is important. I mean, part of it's showing the vulnerability. Part of it is just being honest, But there are so many times when people blow up negative things on themselves without meaning to, by trying to. It's not the mistake; it's the cover-up in all things, right? I mean, Richard Nixon might be known as one of the best presidents ever if he just said, "Oh yeah, we broke into Watergate, to steal some tapes. What's up?" Right? Like we just said that. Maybe he's not. Gerald Ford. We don't even know who he is except for an All-American football player. So,
hey, Sean,
go ahead.
You mentioned empowering people in our last episode. I'm 32 years old. I'm growing a company. Goat Turf is my company, and as we're growing, one of the biggest things I see is that I can't be involved in every single decision. And just from hearing you talk, I know that you've gone up through the ranks and you've had to learn how to empower people. What would be your biggest suggestion on empowering people in your organization?
I think it's twofold. The person you're empowering needs to take it, and they got to own it. The second is it's so scary the first time you let someone else do something you normally did. And that's why I say when you get promoted within an organization, it's sometimes hard to you to take that next step and let someone else, fill your shoes. Conversely, sometimes it's hard for other people to see you in a new role. And like I always said, as long as I was with Powell Sports Entertainment, when we owned a bunch of teams and entertainment centers, there were a handful of people that are always going to see me as the management trainee. And then my mentor, the CEO, the CFO of the team said, "Who cares? Don't worry about those guys. Like truly, just keep taking on new roles and making sure when you're taking that next step, you are giving someone else your old role or old responsibilities and let them do it their way." I mean, a lot of times when you let someone else do what you used to do, you own it like your own child, right? You're afraid to let another guy teach him how to swing, right? That's what I taught him how to do. And you need to, and you have to be confident that they're doing it in a better version than you did because of the way you did it in a positive way. Then the second part is, if you try to do everything, you're going to become a really hateful person to be around, because other people aren't having fun. They don't feel good about themselves, and that their individuality starts to atrophy. And when that happens, you go from being a really good organization to one that literally can't do anything new. And I've made the mistake 1,000 times. Don't get me wrong. I probably made it 3 times today in overstepping what I should do or shouldn't do. But we have an exec meeting every Tuesday. Just got out of it coming to this. And from time to time, I find myself saying, "Guys, you got to help me, man. You got to help me get me out of this. Don't even let me, walk into your kitchen," type of thing. And I think you need some trust with your employees, both in down, but also for them to say, "What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time with this?" Our chairman, maybe 6 months ago, said something to me. He said, "Wow, I'm shocked you're even involved in that. Why are you?" And it was so good to hear. And he was doing it intentionally, right? Reminding me in a very subtle way, there are bigger things for you to do than worrying about X. So it's you have to be really diligent about it. But the most fun part is when you do it and someone else does it better than you imagine it could be. Man, that's so rewarding.
Yeah, I'm excited about that part.
Well, let me say this, because I think one of the best examples that I've ever heard, and it just so happens to be with you, Sean, of like a real life example of that, is this neck brace moment, as I've referred to it in many conversations along my career. since you first told me, but would you give everybody the gift of sharing that story about the neck brace moment when you first got to the Preds?
Well, there are a lot of versions of it because I've done it in 5 different places now. So, but when I got here, the business side of our organization was not very strong. It was beaten down, great employees, but they were given no resources. There was always a reason not to do something. And a lot of good ideas failed because you didn't have the proper resources behind it, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. And I remember every time I brought up an idea or someone else would bring up an idea, before you were even done saying it, there were 3 or 4 people in the room shaking their head. Before you even said, hey, let's put peanut butter on this side of the bread and jelly on this side of the bread. Before you explained what a PB&J was, it was, and dismissively giggled. And I get so mad. I was like, yeah, you can't say no until you hear the idea. And even when you hear it, don't say no. I mean, truly, say yes to every single idea that's ever brought up, ever. And if you do that, create something magical. So I tried to buy, I think it's 75, 100 employees at the time. I tried to buy 100 neck braces, and I couldn't. Walgreens literally only had 4. It wasn't as packed with 4. So I bought all 4, brought one to a meeting, and the first time someone started doing that, I gave it to them. Now, I don't think I did this here, but when I was
in the neck brace of shame, that's what I remember you called it.
Which was stolen from the movie, the cone of shame around the dog's neck.
That's right.
And that's what it was. Like, if you had that, it was because you weren't being a great team member. You weren't being a good coworker. You weren't being a good supervisor or subordinate. Because let people talk. Let them air their idea out before you say no. But we've all been in that room when you think you have the greatest thing ever, right? And you're excited about it. And before you even articulate it, you're like, oh. So the whole idea is you're putting neck brace on people that can't say no. You don't have to do that too many times before people start letting other people express themselves. So I think Marty used to wear it all the time. Tell me.
No. I've sent Sean a neck brace and asked him a question before, but he said no. So I assume
funny. That wasn't an idea. You were trying to sell me something that we were in a position.
Just my love. Just my love.
Well, not John.
Just your love, but I absolutely loved. It was the best reaction to us not moving forward with something when you sent me that. It really was hilarious.
You're so good. Well, hey, I want to follow up with the empowerment, because I think empowerment is this buzzword that people throw around, but in the world we live in today, that word has changed. And here's what I mean. If you look at in Q4, we had this thing called the Great Resignation, and all these people left their jobs, right? And there's this whole movement of people leaving their jobs. And so then you have to start asking yourself, why? What's going on? And I think when you talk about empowerment, you also, there's this new depth in this piece of it. And here's what I mean. I think our brains scan, and I heard somebody say this, and I thought this was very powerful. I think she said our brains scan every day looking for a place where we can be valued, respected, and loved. And the second place is we're looking for a place where we can continue to grow and develop. And if we don't give them a place to grow and develop in your garden, they'll find another garden to go to. And I wonder what your thoughts are about that. But before that, I want to give you a tangible example of Paige Cuffio, who you certainly have developed, and she's grown. She started with you, and I taught her way back when in 2005. And in 2006, she started as a fan relations coordinator, and today she's your senior manager of corporate activations. And I asked her, I said specifically, give me some things that you think about Sean. And I think this, to me, is the ultimate in leadership.
Do I want to hear them?
Well, she said, I don't know if you can share this, but this is a true story. And she said, by the way, I'm sorry for getting back to you so late. It's a military week, and we've got a lot of stuff going on. So she is working. But she said the funniest story that I don't know should be on your show is my water broke with my second child at my desk. And Sean said, quote, I'm prepared to help deliver.
And I went and run over there with boiling water, newspapers, gloves. I was in. Newspapers. By that point.
Willing to take care of people.
He went Adam Sandler on her.
But she also went to say that she said, no matter who they are, he makes time for every single one of us, makes us feel special. He does the same thing. He does the same thing for fans. And I think that speaks to what I was talking about your brain scanning and looking for those things. Do you see that as part of empowerment today, that empowering that next generation is one of the things, and letting them grow and develop is one of the things that will keep them there?
Well, it's twofold. It will have some people leave because they get a lot of notoriety for what they're doing.
Right.
But you have to be comfortable with that. You used a garden analogy that, sometimes you got to prune the garden to let other things blossom.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the other ones weren't growing really well. So as we have success, individuals get to shine a little differently, and organizations in our city, organizations around our league see that, and they'll make some offers. And I'm always happy when someone leaves like Marty did for a new opportunity that's progressively more responsible. I would have been really sad if Marty left for the same position or parallel, path. So yeah, you want to make sure you build a place that people want to be, where they can thrive.
Yeah.
We love the environment we have. We love the culture we have. Yet at the same time, we've engaged with a culture coach, a counselor, an executive coach. We just created a new health and wellness director for our organization, because over the past 2 years, we've come to a lot of different challenges. And we want to make sure that we don't sit back and say, wow, isn't this great? We want to make sure we look at how we can be better. And that's kind of the core heartbeat of what we are.
I love it.
Sean, one of the ways that we honor our guests is we have this segment, if you will, that we call the things that you think and do not say. And it comes from Jerry Maguire. I know you've seen that movie. I know you've not seen Jerry Maguire?
Sean, I think me and you are the same person.
We may need to end this interview
Sean,
right
I think me
here.
and Sean are best friends.
We may need to end this interview.
Well, that's why he had the response that he had. So he writes this mission statement, and it's the things we think and do not say, the future of our business.
I'm going to send it to you.
And he's speaking about the future of the business and saying the things that need to be said so the business can become what it's supposed to become. I'll let you take it from there.
And the whole premise of the movie, he ends up leaving his agency.
Well, I know the premise. Like, I live in the country. I mean, I'm not sheltered.
Another curveball from the king.
Have you seen Star Wars?
Another curveball from the king. Has not seen Jerry Maguire. Okay, moving along. What might be the topic if you were going to write that statement instead of Jerry Maguire? What would be the topic that you would bring up?
Getting involved in people's personal lives. I think the biggest thing we've lost is
offering to deliver their baby right there in the
offering to deliver the baby. But there have been a lot of places. I've been fortunate. I've stepped in a lot of places that maybe weren't thriving, and the commonality I think every place has had is people didn't know each other. They didn't. A handful of pockets of people liked each other. Maybe they got married, whatever. But cross department, cross discipline, cross ages, they didn't know each other. They didn't know how many kids you had. You didn't know if you were going through a divorce, or if your child was sick, or if your dad just got Alzheimer's. And I think it's a fine line, what you know about people.
Sure. But
the more you do, the more responsive you can be. And I just think too many people default to, it's a liability. I shouldn't ask about that. And I think we're losing. You're not nosy. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know what challenges you have. Because if I know that you're bringing your dog, forget about something as serious as your own child or parent, you're bringing a dog to have their Achilles looked at. Well, that weighs on you a little bit. And it weighs then on your children, because what you're going to tell them, I can be a hair more supportive in that. And I think the more of us that do that, the better the place is. And too many companies are moving away from that right now. And it's because someone got sued once for offering an opinion that they shouldn't have offered. So sometimes be compassionate. Just shut your blowhole. You don't have to offer every opinion.
Well, and it's in those moments. I love that you said that. And it's in those moments that you build trust, right? And conversely, not asking about some of those things, you're building quite the opposite, distrust, right? And even though we may not think of it that way, it's those sliding door moments that are producing trust or distrust in the workplace.
And where I sit as a coach, if you go into an organization, you say, tell me about your top performers, they'll talk about all their accolades, but they won't tell you anything about their personal life. And I think that's the point that you're trying to make, right? Is if you want your top performers to continue to be top performers, we don't live in a world anymore where there's not a separation of home life and work life. It's just, you know that from the work that you do every day and the amount of time you spend up there and your people spend up there.
Yeah. I hate that when a young person will ask me, how do you do work-life balance? I said, I don't know. That's a dumb question.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not a
it
good
finds its own balance, always does.
Yeah.
So.
That's true.
Sean, before we land the plane here, we're going to ask you to share with us 5 songs from your playlist. And if you don't have a playlist, I'm sure that's not a thing, though. Maybe 5 songs you can't live without. What would those be?
Well, look, first, do you have a playlist?
I don't have a playlist.
He has no playlist. No,
The curveballs I told you, he's the king.
Jerry Maguire.
He's
No
the
playlist.
king of
What we
curveballs.
have in my house, and anyone's ever gone on vacation with us, and we've always vacationed with the same family, we have Maddie's playlist.
There you
And that's
go.
my son, Matthew. He's got the greatest playlist that he builds for every occasion in the world.
Oh,
so I don't
wow.
need one. I got Maddie. So
There you
Maddie's
go. He does. Somebody does your playlist.
I'll tell you that my favorite music, you know what it is, right? My favorite band, who's ever playing in our building next. And I mean that sincerely. That's not me trying to sell an extra couple of tickets. So right now it's Billie Eilish and Morgan Wallen. And it's absolutely true. My favorite band is who's playing next or who's playing tonight, because I love seeing the engagement and energy between fans and that artist, no matter who it is. I mean, I just love it. Now, my favorite band is The Who. I mean, just again showing the Who and the Grateful Dead. But I can't wait for tomorrow when you have 500 people waiting to get in the building, because that energy level is so contagious and it's upbeat. And then when the main star comes out for their first song or first set or first introduction, I literally am always in the bowl at that moment, because I want to see that explosion. So it's cool. So I'm a little biased because I've probably seen 3,000 concerts now in my working career. And I love the connection, that from what Wayne Newton had to Springsteen has to Garth Brooks has to what Billie Eilish will enjoy tomorrow night.
So I was going to ask the question, what does that say about you? And you just answered it, right? I mean, you love seeing the connection.
Yeah. I mean, I'll walk around and songs get trapped in my head like ping pong balls. But, my favorite band is this. But the only thing on my playlist, just so you know, is Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever my kids say no, like when I say, hey, you want to go have a catch? And they tell me I have homework, I play that for them.
Yeah.
Conversely, whenever they ask me to do something and I tell them I have to go work, they also.
Oh, yeah.
It does go both ways.
Well played.
It does. So I want you to envision as we're fading out here, the Who is playing Eminence Front as we're fading out into the end here. But for Sean Henry, who said this that I think is so powerful: say yes to every idea, and you can do something magical. For Tyler Burnett, John Byers, I'm Colby Jubenville. Sean, we appreciate you being here.
Thanks,
this
Sean.
is the Go Consulting Podcast.